preparing for the Epiphany beginning on Thursday, celebrating this Wednesday with our final portion of Jaded on Twelfth Night. Today we will continue as well with the fourth session of Jaded, and we'll also see introduced to us our final characters in the Christmas story. For those of you who have a creche at home, most of them have the wise men. And for us, where we put our wise men is way over on a speaker on the other side of the room to recall that they didn't come till a little bit later. It was a while before they were seen. Part of that is evidenced in how Herod asked for the arrival of the star and the death of all those children under 2 in the Feast of the Holy Innocents that was celebrated this Tuesday. But today we go back and we look at who these final characters are. As you recall, we talked about Joseph. We talked about the manger itself. We talked about the angels. Today, we talk about the Magi, or the Magus, often known as the Medes, who were with the Persians, who didn't quite rise back up to power, but they kept a place in the Persian society that was much like the Levites were for the Jews. The people who were the smart scientists studying the stars, helping out the rulers of Persia. And so amongst these, as you would see in the movie The Nativity, looking at the stars reflecting in their pool of water, following and seeing that there's this magnificent star set apart from the others. In those days, whenever they saw something out of the ordinary within creation, they knew that God was speaking to them, that something big was happening to us. Now today we have a problem with that, with some of the science we have, to not quite take it as being anything special, but trying to figure it out. It reminds me of a Calvin and Hobbes comic strip, where Calvin is sitting in there and he sees a cloud that looks like his face sticking its tongue out at him. And he talks to Hobbes about this, very upset about this happening. And Hobbes asks him what he thinks it means. He says, well, probably some high altitude winds, some cumulonimbo thing. And Hobbes responds, boy, science takes away from this. Sometimes, instead of trying to figure things out, we need to listen to how God is speaking to us. That can happen to us all the time. Many of us ask for that burning bush moment, but instead of asking God what he's trying to say to us, might go up to it and say, how's this work? How's this happening? Is it a hologram? How's it working? And God's saying, I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to talk to you. The Magi, as they came, though, to Jerusalem, they had to make a decision of their own. As we're in our Jaded study, last week we had looked at rebirth. And the author of the study says it this way: if we could start over, we could get past our hurts, our disillusionments, our jadedness, our cynicism. Life would be fresh. It would be new. We would have a blank slate, at least emotionally, so that we wouldn't feel the pain of our past any longer. Though we can't go back, I believe that there is an opportunity to be free, experience a new way of living, and move past a jaded existence. It's not as simple as just saying a prayer and everything being fixed in your life. That may happen for you out of God's kindness, but for most of us, like everything else worthwhile, it is a process. For the Magi, their process was traveling, following a star for a couple years, and then coming close and having to ask for help. having to go to King Herod and say, what are the prophecies that may lead us to the right place? And so he provides for them. The chief priests, the former high priests, reminded him of the passage. In Bethlehem in Judea, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel. So the Magi knew where to go. So he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him. And after they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. It wasn't that the star didn't show them where to go. It was that first they had to ask for help. There was a process that God wanted them to go through. That they needed to stop and see King Herod. And for some of us, we may say, well, if they didn't see Herod, then Jesus' life would have been threatened. But then Jesus wouldn't have gone to Egypt. Jesus would have been able to be there safe. Jesus had a path he had to follow as well. He had a place he had to go. In this passage, then, we also see that the Magi weren't the only ones to have a decision to be made, that they had to go and ask for help. They could have wandered around and wandered around trying to find the right place, but because of the prophecy, they were able to go to the right place. Now, the decision of the leaders of Herod and the chief priests was, we know the prophecy. We're sending the Magi to go to the king. How are we going to respond? For Herod, his response was, let's take him out. Let's get rid of him. Let's try to take care of him. When the Magi come back, he'll tell me where to go, and I'll take care of this problem. Now, King Herod had done a lot of good things during his reign, during his 40-year reign. He had helped out the people. He had sold some of his own property to help people who were poor. But as he got older, he got a little bit concerned about his power. He murdered his own sons. As a matter of fact, it got to a point where Caesar said it was safer to be his hus than his huis. It was safer to be a pig in his household than his son. He was so concerned about his power, so paranoid that it'd be taken away, that he had trumped up charges brought up against famous people within the kingdom, put in jail with the order that on his death they would all be killed so that some tears would be shed upon his death. So it's no wonder that he would have made this command. He would have been this paranoid that he wanted to take out this king that the Magi were going to see. But the chief priests, they had no excuse. They knew the prophecies. They should have been excited. The Messiah has come. But if you continue reading in the Gospels, you will see that their conflict has only just begun. The conflict didn't start way when Jesus started his ministry and started performing miracles. It started way back when he was just a toddler. When the Magi came and gave him thought that the Messiah had come into the world. See, we have a decision to make when this is revealed to us, that we see that Jesus has come into the world. We can make the decision like the Magi did to go and to worship him. We can make a decision like the chief priests and Herod to say, no, this can't be happening, or let's do all we can to stop it. We are in control of our lives. We can't give up that control. The author of Jaded says it this way: At the bottom of the jaded cycle, there is a choice. Move further into disillusionment or be filled with hope. The secret is in what I call the freedom choice. I spent a long time trying to figure out how to describe this in words until I stumbled on it in Scripture. It was one of those aha moments. Romans chapter 5, verse 1. Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand. And we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. We have a decision. The chief priest had a decision. How are we going to respond to this? How do we respond to Jesus Christ coming to the world? How do we respond? There was a third decision to take place in this book as well. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and its mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." Joseph had to decide to obey yet again. In chapter 1, he makes the decision to go ahead and to marry Mary, to take Jesus to be his son. And now he's told, go. In the middle of the night, there is danger. Get up. Don't hesitate. Sometimes that's how God speaks to us, where the response needs to be immediate. And it can be really easy to hesitate like the chief priests. I'm reading a book written by Stephen Lawhead. It's one of his older ones that he wrote back in the early 80s, called The Warriors of Nin, the Dragon King trilogy. And in this, there was also a portent star up in the sky. But this star was not predicting anything good. It was predicting great evil. Nin himself and his warriors, broken up into their bands of 4, to attack and take over the Dragon King and his kingdom of Ascalon. The chief priest in the temple has a dream and is able to interpret that dream and tell him that this great danger is coming and that the king, the Dragon King, has to be warned. And when he tells that to the other priests, instead of going along with him, they remove him from his place as chief priest. And when the king is told about the warriors from first-hand experience of those who have been tortured, those who were in the enemy camp, when the others, he tells them about the danger that was to coming, they tell him, it must not be that bad. We can't support you in this war. Right in our faces, the danger is there. And we experience that often in our lives, telling our friends, sometimes our family, about the danger that is in the world and talking about the fact that they need to submit to Jesus Christ and live. And their response is, no, I think things are all right. Joseph's response could have been, no, I think things will be okay. I'm comfortable here. I'm tucked into my bed. But his response was, I gotta go. I gotta get on the road. I gotta take my child and mother during the night and leave for Egypt. And he stayed there until Herod had died, to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. We all have a process. We all have a journey that we must go through. And at the time, it seems like the worst thing in the world. But God works through it. God guides us. God protects us. As long as our ears are attentive to how he wants us to go, we'll do well. And the good news is, even when we stray a little bit, he still provides hope for us. Jesus Christ died on a cross. It has been done. Our task is to let go and to serve him. Merry Christmas.